The book trembled in the elderly woman's weathered hands as Emma Thompson discussed her latest literary adaptation. Ellen was mid-question about storytelling when she noticed the woman in the second row holding a children's picture book against her chest, like a shield. What happened next would prove that it's never too late to learn, never too late to dream, and never too late for kindness to change a life forever. It was a golden Tuesday afternoon at the Ellen DeGeneres show, and the studio hummed with anticipation. 400 audience members had gathered to see one of Britain's most beloved actresses discuss her new film project. Ellen, radiant in an elegant burgundy blazer, was thoroughly enjoying her conversation with Emma Thompson, who sat gracefully in the guest chair, wearing a flowing navy dress, her silver hair catching the studio lights as she spoke with that distinctive blend of wit and wisdom that had made her a treasure on both sides of the Atlantic. "Emma," Ellen said, settling comfortably into the interview, "you've adapted so many wonderful stories for the screen. What draws you to a particular book or story?" Emma's eyes lit up with the passion that had driven her remarkable career. "Oh, Ellen, stories are everything, aren't they? They're how we make sense of the world, how we connect with each other across time and distance. When I find a story that needs to be told, especially one that might help someone feel less alone in this world, I simply can't resist it." The audience murmured appreciatively. This was exactly the kind of thoughtful conversation that made Ellen's celebrity interviews appointment television for millions. "And you're particularly passionate about literacy programs," Ellen continued. "Tell us about that work." "Absolutely," Emma nodded enthusiastically. "Reading opens every door, doesn't it? It's the foundation of everything. But so many people struggle with literacy, and there's such shame around it. I've been working with organizations that help adults learn to read, and the courage these people show, Ellen, it's just extraordinary." That's when Ellen noticed her. In the second row, slightly to the left, sat a woman who appeared to be in her 70s. She had gray hair pulled back in a careful bun and wore a simple floral dress that had clearly been chosen as her very best outfit. Her name was Rose Martinez, though Ellen didn't know it yet. What caught Ellen's attention was the way Rose was clutching a children's picture book titled "The Little Engine That Could," while tears streamed silently down her cheeks. Ellen's instincts, honed through 2 decades of reading audiences, told her this wasn't the emotional response of a typical fan. Rose's tears spoke of something deeper, something personal and immediate. "Emma," Ellen said gently, "hold that thought about literacy for just a moment." Emma paused, following Ellen's gaze toward the audience. Her expression immediately shifted from entertainer to concerned human being as she noticed Rose's distress. Ellen stood up from her chair and took several steps toward the audience. "Ma'am in the second row with the book, are you all right?" Rose looked up, startled by the sudden attention of 400 people and multiple cameras. She clutched the children's book tighter and shook her head quickly, embarrassed. "I'm sorry," Rose said, her voice soft but carrying a slight Spanish accent. "I didn't mean to interrupt. It's just what she said about people who struggle with reading." Ellen didn't hesitate. She walked down the steps that separated the stage from the audience, something she did only when every instinct told her a moment was more important than any planned segment. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Ellen asked, now standing directly in front of Rose's row. "Rose Martinez. I'm 73 years old, and I have a confession to make." Ellen knelt down in the aisle beside Rose's row, her burgundy blazer spreading around her. The studio cameras adjusted to capture both women, but Ellen's focus was entirely on Rose. "What's your confession, Rose?" Rose held up the picture book with trembling hands. "I can't read this book. I've never been able to read any book. I dropped out of school when I was 12 to work and help my family. For 61 years, I've pretended I could read. I've memorized restaurant menus, asked my children to help me with forms, made up excuses when people handed me things to read. From the stage, Emma Thompson leaned forward in her chair, her actress's training forgotten, as she focused entirely on Rose's words. Ellen took Rose's hands gently. "Rose, why are you telling us this now?" "Because last week my 5-year-old granddaughter, Sophia, asked me to read her a bedtime story. She handed me this exact book and said, 'Abuela, you read the best stories.' And I had to tell her that Abuela was too tired, that maybe tomorrow. But there won't be a tomorrow where I can read to her unless I find the courage to learn." The studio fell into that profound silence that happens when hundreds of people recognize they've witnessed something extraordinary. The shame and courage in Rose's voice was so raw, so honest, that it transcended every barrier of age, language, and experience. Ellen felt tears welling in her own eyes. "Rose, what made you decide to come here today?" "My neighbor gave me these tickets for my birthday. She said I needed to get out, have some fun. But when I heard Ms. Thompson talking about people who struggle with reading, I thought maybe if I was brave enough to tell the truth, someone could help me learn. Not for me, Ellen. For Sophia." Emma Thompson, without being asked, stood up from her chair and walked to the edge of the stage. "Rose, may I come down there and talk to you?" Rose nodded, fresh tears streaming down her face. Emma descended the stage steps with the grace of someone who understood that some moments transcend performance. She approached Rose with the reverence of someone who recognized true courage. "Rose," Emma said, her British accent lending gravity to every word, "what you've just done, admitting this in front of all these people, that's not just brave, that's heroic. Do you know how many adults struggle with literacy and never find the courage to ask for help?" Rose shook her head, looking up at Emma with wonder. "Millions," Emma continued, "and you've just shown every one of them that it's never too late to learn, never too late to change your story." Ellen stood up slowly, her heart breaking and filling simultaneously. "Rose, I want you to know something. Starting tomorrow, we're going to help you learn to read that book to Sophia." Rose's eyes widened. "You would do that?" "Not just that," Ellen said. "Emma, you've worked with literacy programs. What would you suggest?" Emma knelt down beside Rose, creating an intimate circle of 3 women from different worlds, united by this moment. "Rose, I want to personally connect you with the most wonderful reading teacher I know, and I want to be there when you read your first complete story to Sophia." But Ellen wasn't finished. She began removing her burgundy blazer, the one that had become her signature for this season. "Rose," Ellen said, "this blazer has been with me through some of my most important interviews. But today, it's witnessing something more important than any celebrity story. It's witnessing the moment when shame becomes courage." She placed the blazer around Rose's shoulders. "I want you to keep this. And when you read that first story to Sophia, I want you to wear it and remember that you are never too old to become the person you were meant to be." Emma reached into her purse and pulled out a beautiful leather-bound journal. "And Rose, this is for you to practice writing in, because once you learn to read, you'll want to write your own stories. Trust me on that." The moment that brought the entire studio to tears came when Ellen asked Rose what she would say to other people who were ashamed of not being able to read. "I would tell them that shame is just fear wearing a disguise," Rose said, her voice growing stronger, "and that love is stronger than fear. My love for Sophia is stronger than my fear of being embarrassed. If an old lady like me can learn, anyone can learn." The audience erupted in applause, but it wasn't celebrity applause. It was the deep, emotional recognition of someone who had just changed their life in front of 400 strangers. 6 months later, Rose Martinez appeared on The Ellen DeGeneres Show again, but this time as a featured guest. She read The Little Engine That Could aloud to the entire studio audience, her voice strong and clear. Emma Thompson, who had stayed true to her word, sat beside her, beaming with pride. The moment when 5-year-old Sophia ran onto the stage and hugged her grandmother while saying, "Abuela, you read the best stories," became one of the most viewed clips in the show's history. The segment sparked a national conversation about adult literacy and the shame that keeps people from seeking help. Ellen's show partnered with literacy organizations across the country, and Rose became a volunteer reading tutor, proving that the best teachers are often those who remember what it felt like to struggle. Emma Thompson learned that day that the most powerful performances happen not on movie sets, but in living rooms, where grandmothers find the courage to learn new things so they can give their grandchildren the gift of stories. Ellen learned that her job wasn't to interview famous people about their latest projects. Her job was to create moments where human courage could shine, where shame could be transformed into hope, and where it's never too late for anyone to write a new chapter in their story. And Rose Martinez learned that sometimes the scariest thing you can do is also the most important thing you can do, and that love really is strong enough to overcome any obstacle, including the one between you and the words you've always wanted to read. Because the most beautiful stories aren't the ones we read in books. They're the ones we live when we find the courage to admit we need help and the wisdom to accept it when it's offered.